your phone now, Mark. I've got that little clock in the lower right. So you've been, although I missed your phone, I have to tell you, I missed that.
I got a new phone that doesn't have it.
Ah,
Ugh, breaks my heart.
ah.
I know, but it's supposed to be the best phone out there, yada, yada, yada. I've already broken it twice.
All right. Well, I can see it's 7 o'clock. Let me just do a check. I can just scroll through. I see, I'm trying to look. I don't see Margaret. I don't see Bob Hunneman. All right. Well, okay, just a check there. All right. Well, I think we're ready to go. Let me ask Allison, how do you guys feel about the technology side?
We are recording and streaming.
Okie dokie. All right, well, it is 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Brookfield Inland Wetlands. Today is Monday, the 13th of June, 2020. My name is Sharon Fox. I act as the chair of the commission. With me this evening is Mr. Mark Mulvaney, who is our vice chairman, Mr. Michael Neustadt, who is a regular member, and on the phone, Mr. Dave Frankel, who is an alternate. So all four of us will be voting members tonight. Again, I think that's it from the commission. Let me make sure no one snuck in. All righty. So also with us is Alice Dew, who is the Wetlands Enforcement Officer, and Allison Kennedy, who is our recording secretary. So we will start the meeting with Wetlands Enforcement.
All right. Oh, now I've got it. Okay. It's 148 North Lake Shore is the first one. That is still in court. Court is fairly slow these days, so nothing's happened.
Okay.
Second one is 58 Old Grays Bridge Road. I have not gotten an update from Ari, but I haven't seen anything happening there in the past several months.
Huh.
So I will reach out to him after this meeting.
Okay.
83
like, you haven't seen like no activity, like no trucks, no bulldozers, no excavators, that kind of thing?
I haven't when I've driven past, but
Gotcha.
that doesn't mean they haven't been there because they go in and go out.
Gotcha.
So I'll give them a call. 83 Kennewood Lake Road, nothing new on that one yet. And I'm having trouble seeing my report, but there's a new one on the list, and it is, I've sent a letter. I haven't done a notice of violation yet for 58 and 60 Obtuse Road South. It is owned by the Modulewski family, and I have photos with a complaint about work being done down near a pond. Interestingly, half of the property is used as pasture land, so it's really being farmed as of right. So I'm waiting. I sent them a letter and basically asked them what they were doing and asked for them to get back to me by Thursday. So if they do not, then I will send a notice of violation.
Okay. Like I said, farming is one thing. Digging and construction is something else.
Right.
Right.
And that's it.
All right. Anybody else have anything for Alice? Anything driving around that you noticed or questions?
I do. Alice, I sent you a couple of pictures today. I don't know the name of the road. It doesn't have a name on our maps yet. It's a new
Hollow
development
Drive.
off of North Mountain Hill.
Yeah,
What?
it's Hollow Drive.
Hollow Drive, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's an area that's filled in, it has trees, debris, cut trees, debris, machinery going in and out of it. And my recollection is that that was one of his sediment basin created wetland type things. So we'd have to look at the old prints, but if you could maybe take a look up there.
Yeah,
I just saw it late yesterday.
I have been up there, and I talked to the Sivos who are doing the developing up there. There's a house that's going to go in on that property and was part of the approved plan. It shows silt fence between the newly created sediment basin and the the house that's being proposed. The SIVOs don't feel that the created basin, the sediment basin is a wetlands yet, or even a water course. And the actual wetlands is more than 100 feet away. However, I would think that any water that goes into the basin would eventually end up in the wetlands. So if there's any erosion that happens into the basin, it could potentially end up in the wetlands.
That's the detention basin that's right at the,
I would
At the foot of
suggest,
that
I don't know if you
road,
guys
right?
can see that picture. You see the water in the basin, and then all the brush and debris and fill in the basin. Half the basin is filled up with debris. So,
Okay, I'll go take a look at it. I didn't realize that.
yeah, thank you.
Sure.
all right. Didn't see that. I think I drove by there maybe 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I just saw it yesterday.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, the detention basin is, I mean, it's got water in it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a water course.
And if you don't treat,
Wetlands.
it's there to treat the water. So when you have debris in it and you have to get in there to get the debris out, you're disturbing the water that's flowing down into the stream and into the wetlands.
Wasn't there also that we're going to make a slight modification to that plan?
Mhm.
Yeah, they were going to make it bigger because they couldn't get as deep.
Do you happen, I don't remember where we ended up on that. If that actually got accomplished?
I don't believe so. No, he was talking about making it into a pond, but I don't think so. I'll look that up.
Please. Yeah. Great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thanks, Mark. Anybody else notice anything? All right, well, again, we don't have any active site inspection reports. The next item is on the agenda is the public hearing. We're going to hold that. So if you're here for the public meeting, just hang on. We're going to jump through the agenda and then we're going to come back to the public hearing for 100 Candlewood Lake Road. So we're going to go to 5 old business, 731 Federal Road. I think I saw there's people for the applicant here. Is that right?
No, they asked for a continuation to the next meeting so they could address the comments from the third-party reviewers.
Okay, I guess I missed that. Well, I have to tell you, I have read what they have, what the third-party reviewers have talked about. Let me just open it up to my colleagues here. I am of the mind, I know they said this came in, just the Friday before our meeting on Monday, which was, 4th of July or something like whatever. No, I guess end of July. We didn't have a lot of time to look through it. I've had a little bit of time to look through it. I'm of the opinion that it warrants a public hearing, but let me ask Mark, Michael, and Dave what your thinking is.
I would agree. I had some concerns, if you remember last meeting, about flooding issue, and that was brought up also in our third-party review. I'm not sure the delineation they have of the flood area is particularly correct. So yes, a public hearing would be appropriate.
I'm for a public hearing also.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Mark, any thoughts you want to add?
I'd like to think this could have gotten dealt with without a public hearing, but I'm not sure. Too much time has elapsed and I don't see enough movement in the direction that I'd like to see it headed. So I guess I would also be in favor of a public hearing.
Yeah, well, I said there is evidence of direct wetlands impact, on this development, and I think as a commission, part of we've been very consistent, that when there is direct wetlands impact that we allow, we want the public, to provide additional input and also have the opportunity to weigh in on it yet. So I know the applicant isn't here. But I think we can, I think we can set a public hearing for this evening.
Just
So, yes.
a question. not sure for who, but I noticed there was a letter from someone who identified themselves as a budding property, though they were on the other side of the Still River. Do you consider someone who abuts on the opposite side of the river as if their land lines, their lot lines are in the middle of the river? Are they considered abutters?
We take it by 100-foot radius, so anybody's property who's touching that property, the property being
Yeah.
applied for, within 100 feet, it's considered an abutter.
Okay, doesn't have to actually touch the
Right,
property line. Thanks.
sure.
Okay, well, let me ask, I said, I think we're in the process of going to set a public hearing, so I'm just looking at calendars. Alice, we need, what, about a month to do these, to set these up?
Yeah, July wouldn't work. The next one is,
The next one is the 27th,
yes,
so I think we're looking at the 10th of August.
yes.
Mm-hmm. 2 meetings up.
All right,
Um,
and I know we've gotten some information from Mr. Trinkus and also from Davidson Environmental, so we got that, so that's what I'm thinking. Why don't we set up, my suggestion would be to set a public hearing for Monday, the 10th of August.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for the reasons that we have all, we've all talked about. It's a big project and there's direct wetlands impact. All right, someone want to make a motion to that effect?
Oh, so moved.
We want to try, because we're being, let me make a, Dave, where I said we're trying to be a little bit more thorough again because we're recorded and such, so you want to do it? I know
Okay,
you're on-
I don't have the
Yeah.
document, so
I will make-
somebody else can do it.
I will
Great.
make a motion that we set a public hearing for 731 Federal Road, number W20-26, for August 10th.
I'll second that.
Was that Michael?
Yes.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of the motion? Aye.
I,
Okay, thank you, Dave. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries unanimous, 4-0. Thank you. All right, we've got another one here. We've got new business. We've got 19 Bonnie Road. There's someone here from 19 Bonnie Road.
Yes, I am.
Okay, just hang on one second. Let me just bring up this application. Just get it here. All right, so we've got an application for a pool. We've got about 3.7 acres. There is, looks like 64 square feet. Wetlands on the property, no disturbed wetlands. There's a water course, no disturbance, disturbed upland review area. Okay. All right, we'll come back to the meeting. Like I said, and I'm, sir, if you're here for the application, can we just get your name and address, please?
It's Stephen Bologna, 87
Okay.
Hill, Brookfield, Connecticut.
It would be a lot easier, Ms. Bologna, if we were sitting right in front of you, we're on the
Mhm.
table at town
It
hall.
surely would.
It would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know, if everybody got a chance to take a look at this application and the map?
Yes.
I did. It looks pretty straightforward.
Okay, so Mr. Bologna, you're using the GIS map here, right? There are no wetlands flagging on your property, is that right?
Yeah, it's a customer's property.
Oh, it's a customer's property. All right, thank you for that.
It's a very small stream. It's a little over 100 feet away from the pool. So they were saying we needed a silt fence up to protect that while we excavate. I mean, the excavation process is pulling sod, really. We're going to haul that material away. And then the filter, as far as a backwash system, we're going to install a recirculation filter. That way it doesn't,
Okay,
it just recirculates back into the pool. So it's like a separate filter that'll catch the dirty DE, that would normally go into the yard.
Okay. We're looking at like I said, at this GIS map. It's got the hand-drawn pool in it and the proposed 12 by 20 deck.
Yeah.
Is this it? There's nothing else, is there? Or do we have anything with there's one
That's
other.
all that's going to be there.
Okay. All right, I see that. So what we don't have on this is some idea of where that pool is going to be located, either the distance from the house, or you said it's a stream over there?
Yeah, so it would be on, let me see, the north side. There's like a little stream. It's, I've been there twice and it's been pretty much dried up both times. I think the pool was around 35 feet off the house, and then the deck was on the house side.
Okay. Well, I said if we were at town hall and we were sitting at the same table, we'd be able to, sort of manually draw some of those in. I think one of the things I am interested in asking you to do is to put those
I think
dimensions
I do
on
have
this
one.
map.
On my computer.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I do have a drawing of it with the measurements, but it's actually on my computer, I think.
Sure.
Please get that to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I'll let my colleagues weigh in here, but I think a dimension, that would show where that pool is in relationship to the house. I know you can get that very specific, and then a dimension about the pool to the silt fence, because you've got there's a little bit of yeah, put the pool to the silt fence, and then that's a tree line, isn't it? Alice, that little squiggly thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And then dimension from the pool to the tree line?
Pool to the stream. I'm sorry, you cut out there.
Yeah, to the tree line. See the little tree line? There's a little bump out there right by the pool.
All right. Yeah, I could send it to you.
Okay. And then we'll need to, drawn in here, where you're going to install that silt fence, which will be someplace between the pool and the tree line.
Would you like it at the tree line?
I don't think you're going to want it at the tree line. It's going to have to be towed in, so there's always a chance of some root disturbance when you're,
I mean, do you want it as close to the pool area as possible?
Well, I think as close to the pool area as possible, such that you can still do whatever construction work you need to do. Yes, the closer to the pool, the better.
Yeah, and please note it on your drawing that silt fence is also the limit of disturbance.
Okay.
Now, do
All
you
right,
know?
that's not
I
a
said no. Yeah. So this is new business. State law with wetlands. You probably know this. We have to give everyone, the public, an opportunity to take a look at this. So so we won't be able to make a decision today. It'll be back on the agenda in 2 weeks. Are you familiar with that?
No, but that sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Do you know, are there any trees that need to come down to put the pool in?
No, he's not taking any trees down.
Okay.
He did put that on his plan. I saw that.
Oh, did you? Okay, I missed it.
And I do have a quick question. There seems to be a small structure to the northeast slightly of the pool. Is that an existing structure or something you're doing?
It must be an existing structure. Oh, that's his deck, I think. Oh, no, I see it.
No, it's
Yeah,
away from the house.
Yeah, maybe it's a shed. I'm not sure. That's nothing we're doing though.
Okay. It's existing, not being done.
All right.
You
Well,
had,
go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. You had mentioned that stream when you looked at it, it was dry. We've had up until the last several days, we've had very dry weather. So that could be why it dried up, but it probably isn't dry anymore.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not dry right now.
All right. Well, would it also be possible, I know I'd like to get out there and just take a quick look at just a quick look at the site to just take a look. Would it be possible to place 2 stakes?
Yeah, of course.
2 stakes that sort of, on the wetland side of where that pool and the deck is going to be?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we could paint it out or stake it out, if that's what you want.
Paint would be, paint would be fine. A snow marker, a 1x1 stake, anything that would be easy for one of us to see. Again, just to get a better visualization between, where the pool is, and again, a chance to actually see that, stream or stream bed, or, what the GIS map is showing for wetlands area.
All right.
Also, will there be, if there's any excavating, would it make sense to mark out an area where things will be stored until they're pulled away, and make sure that's protected by the silt fence as well?
We're gonna haul the material as soon as we take it out.
So you have no need for storage of material?
Yeah, we're not really gonna, be storing it. I mean, like I said, it's very flat, so it's almost just like pulling sod up. So it's not a lot to truck away.
Oh, is this an above ground pool?
Yes, it's an above ground pool.
Okay.
All right. All right, so anything else, Mark, Dave, Michael?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so if you could let us know, or just give the land use office a call, let them know when you've got those, those 2 stakes, paint, again, something simple, that identify where that pool is going to be, and, approximate the deck. If you can get that, that'll give us a chance when we go out, maybe let the property owner know, that we'll try and get out, be safe about everything. And then if you could, like I said, provide an updated document that's got some measurements on it between the pool and the house, the pool and the tree line, and just draw in a highlighter where the silt fence will be, which again will be on the wetlands side. I think that's it.
All right, perfect. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I said I don't really see. I said with just for what I am seeing, unless there's, I reserve the right. There might be something I'm not seeing yet. I don't see this as being very complicated. I'm right at this juncture.
All right, great.
Okay.
I agree.
So
You ready for a motion?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman? I'll
Yep.
make a motion that we continue item 6A, 19 Bonnie Road, W 20-29 to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is the 27th of July.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. All right. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. So motion carries 4-0, unanimous. All right. All right. So now we're going to return to the public hearing for 100 Candlewood Lake Road. And again, for people on the phone, members of the public, I said we're going to use the same procedure that we did, the same process that we announced 2 weeks ago. For you, I think at a minimum, everyone, when the applicant is done, when we've got, the commissioners have had a chance to ask some questions, I will open it up to you for questions that you might want to address to the commission about, maybe about the process, or questions that you might want to address to the applicant about the application itself. So there'll be an opportunity for questions. Again, we ask that they be, wetlands related. We'll be on the lookout. It worked pretty well last time. We looked for shows of hands. We listened for sounds. I think we got everybody. So after we're done with the questions, we'll give everyone a chance. We'll do some pros and cons. We'll give everyone a chance to, if you want to speak in favor of the application, we'll be anxious to hear that. If you want to speak in opposition to the application, we'll be interested in hearing that. Again, we just ask you to keep your comments related to, to wetlands issues and things that this commission, has has been given the purview to think about. So I just wanted to restate that. Again, and please, everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. We won't leave here, without giving everyone the opportunity. All righty. Well, again, I said for the applicant, maybe you guys could just help everyone out. Who's here for the school? Can we just get your names and addresses, please? I see Darren.
Hi, it's Darren Overton from Ilona McBroom here on behalf of the applicant. Also with us tonight, same as last meeting, are Eddie Wadowski and Jeff Wazinski from Tecton Architects.
Okay.
And also Matt Sanford, our wetland biologist from Ilona McBroom.
Okay. So I also want to make note that we have the towns or the commission's experts are here. I see Mr. Davidson is here. Mr. Cowan is here, and I know Mr. Trinkus.
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
On the phone. So I think I got everybody. All right. So we've gotten, let's see, just to check, I don't see, let me just ask Alice and my fellow commissioners, I don't see any new, or I don't see any emails or letters or anything from the public in the list that Diane put together. Is that everyone in agreement on that?
I agree.
Yes.
I haven't seen anything. Again, we'll offer the public for the time that the public hearing is open. If you want to get a letter in or an email, that's terrific. We do have a number of, we have a lot of new material here. We have a number of reviews. We have a number of responses to reviews. And then the applicant, we've got some new materials. So let me make a suggestion. Maybe you guys could just tell us, I see a whole bunch of new plans here and new sheets. Here's an idea. Let people, weigh in on it. Maybe you could just tell us what those are and maybe what summarize the changes, and then we can go take a look at some of the responses to the various letters. How does that sound?
Sure, that's fine. So
Yep.
we took into consideration the commission's comments from the last public hearing. We also had more time to review the professional review comments that came in from your consultants. We did work over the 2 or 3 weeks that we had to formulate responses to those. We submitted formal response letters. There's 3 of them addressing each of the 3 consultant review letters. As part of that, to address a number of those comments, there were revisions that were made to the plans. Some of it had to do with clarifications to list the wetland impacts on the plans as recommended and put some other labeling on the plans to clarify a few things. There were also some changes. We did make a couple of changes to reduce the wetland impacts, the most significant of which was on the south side. There was a little corner of wetland that we were impacting that extended off of the Erickson farm parcel. We showed a little boulder wall there at the bottom of the slope in order to avoid that impact, because we recognize that that is part of a larger sensitive wetland on the southern part of the site and extending onto the Erickson farm parcel. So as part of the concerns of the commission, we did look to make some modifications in order to reduce some of our direct wetland impacts. And we also added some additional plantings and enhancements as were also recommended. One of the comments was related to the bioretention material that we're using for the bioretention basin out front. we provided a copy of our specification that will be submitted for bidding and construction of the project. We normally don't put that information on our plans because it's detailed out in our specification, but we did provide a copy of that. We also provided a copy of the geotech report that was requested. So that has all of the on-site work that was done, the borings and the analysis, and then all of the recommendations that our geotechnical engineers had as part of the project. So a submission of that comprehensive report was provided. We identified through the comments from Mr. Trinkus that we had submitted a couple of outdated reports for our computations to back up our stormwater comps. There were 2 of them, I believe, in our pond reports. I still don't know how we got obsolete data reports in there, but we updated those and the current ones are there.
We think that would be rather easy to do considering everything, so.
Well, I have to say, we do go through a number of iterations, so sometimes it gets tough to track, and sometimes we backtrack from our most recent ones because we think earlier iterations may have been better. But we normally track that carefully and everything matches, but we did make a mistake, so we submitted the ones that support what was shown on the plans and in the report. And then also there were concerns about snow storage. So we did look at islands where snow could be stored. We don't believe that any snow will need to be trucked off of this site. There is quite a large green space out front, which is being utilized for open play field that in the winter will not likely be utilized that much. So part of that could be used for snow storage if we have an extreme winter. We also talked to Public Works Department, as well as we thought that they had maintained the school site and did some of the snow removal, or that the Board of Ed may have hired a consultant. But we found out that actually Park and Rec manages the snow removal at the site. So we did talk to them about how they manage salt use on the site, because we understand that's a concern in the area. It's been an issue with some of the area wells. So Public Works has a process where they manage and set their application rates based on the type of snowstorm, and the balance of safe conditions for residents while they understand that there can be environmental impacts from overuse. So they carefully manage that. And in talking with Park and Rec, they also do have a similar process. They noted that last year they sent all their staff to, or some of their staff at least, to a Yukon program for managing salt for de-icing in winter conditions. So they have sought additional training in order to manage that. But again, it's a balance between, safety of people who use the school and, proper management in order to limit impacts to the environment. So we followed up on a number of these issues. I expect there's going to be discussion about more of them. And what we're hoping to get from the meeting tonight is an understanding of, what items are no longer issues and what the commission continues to be concerned with, so that we can make an effort to address these and work together as a team to put together a project that everybody's comfortable with.
Okay, so Steve, Jim, and Eric, looks like these plans are dated 7/8. So this is the second set. Do you guys have them?
Yeah, Steve Trinkus. Yeah, Alice sent us a link the end of last week.
Okay.
Due to other things, I didn't really have a detailed look. I can discuss some issues tonight, but I would reserve judgment and provide a follow-up response. There's a lot of new information regarding the stormwater report. It came from what was submitted. So,
Sure.
but if Darren has submitted an updated one, then, we will look at that. I have not had a chance to look at that yet prior to tonight.
Okay. Jim, Eric, I assume, is it similar for you? I said this, the date on this is last Thursday?
Yes, this is Jim. Yes, I got the material on Thursday, Friday, and have had a chance to look it over. And so I do have some comments
Okay.
at the appropriate time.
Okay, that's good. This might be the time to do that if you've got some things. They're verbal, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I'm thinking this, when we have you, I said, and Eric, we want to go to you. I said, if we want to give you the chance, but Jim, why don't you, if everyone's okay with that, Jim, maybe you can just give us some, give us at least your, initial thoughts on the updated plans.
Okay, so I think they've addressed some of my concerns. One, I haven't seen a specification on how invasives would be removed. So as my recommendation in the past continues to be that on the plan set, it should be clearly spelled out so the contractor on the drawings can see what it is they're doing in terms of invasive control, where and what methods that are appropriate for a wetland situation, like with the Canada thistle and enhancement areas in the wetlands. So there needs to be some more detail on the invasive control, in my opinion.
And that's a long-term conversation, right? That's a long-term of, for managing this, right? It's not just during construction.
Well, there's two parts to it. I think in terms of the sequence of construction, when things are done, for instance, like the thistle, it should be managed so that it doesn't go to seed and spread seed everywhere. And so that's a specific kind of recommendation. And obviously, invasive control is not a one-shot deal, but in terms of enhancement areas, it should be rolled in as a phase. When does invasives get removed? 1 or 2 treatments before planting. My recommendation is invasives ought to be at least largely controlled before you do enhancement planting. Otherwise, the invasives can overwhelm the plants that you're putting in. So it should just be in the sequencing. When does the invasive control, and it should be wetland approved herbicides or whatever methods are going to be recommended, so that the contractor can bid appropriately, so they know what they're bidding on. And related to that, I did say in my comments that monitoring should be part of it. The critical part for wetland creation and enhancement is keeping an eye on it after it's been installed. For the first year, at least, first year is most critical, but even up to 3 years, just to manage invasives so they can be in the seed bank, they can get blown in, and birds can bring them in. When you have disturbed soil, that gives them a great opportunity. So in invasive management during the grow-in, and so I would recommend that there be a monitoring plan, and it's up to the commission or whether or not you would require a bond from, a town school. For private clients, we've often recommended that you have it bonded so that you make sure that it gets done and that there be inspection reports submitted at least annually.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jim. I said, we'll give you the opportunity. I said, I know you got it. We appreciate that. If you've got additional comments, we'll love to have those in writing.
I guess I would just say one other thing, and that is that Malone and McBroom has had a lot of experience with different groups, and I think they could give some recommendation and guidance to the school board on educational opportunities for the wetland creation and enhancement areas. So I think giving some guidance to the school, it is a wetland value education, and it's a perfect opportunity. So I think just whether it be signboards or can be pretty simple, but I think that it's an opportunity that shouldn't be overlooked. And, I had suggested the Monarch Watch as one educational component, and there are certainly others.
Okay, great, thank you. Eric, let me ask you, I know I said you got it, shortly after the 8th. Any initial thoughts, or what's your?
Yeah. Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I reviewed the updated plans and the summary letters that they provided. They were relatively minor changes to the plans as far as my comments were concerned. And the letter answered my questions about some of the wetland impact issues, and particularly the area around wetland 1 and 2, where there was activity close to the retaining wall, which I saw that there was also some comments by Steve on that as well. But they explained what the sort of the significance of that wall in terms of construction, and my concern was there was going to be additional wetland impact with that very narrow buffer along wetlands 1 and 2. But I believe they've answered that question, and the other minor things I had asked about in terms of conducting some box turtle sweeps prior to construction, they are going to include those into the construction notes. So I think that answers the questions that I had posed in the initial review. I mean, just the overall question I think I had was about just the wetland impacts in general, and maybe a better explanation as to why the whole development can't be pulled forward. I think at the last meeting they did explain that was a constraint that was put on them by the school board in terms of keeping the existing school open, which doesn't allow to kind of reconfigure the entire site, but actually have to operate the old school and build the new school. So a bigger change in terms of pulling all of the development away from those western wetlands seems like it's not feasible based on what the town's asking them to do. So I know you had asked a bunch of questions in an email.
Yeah, if let me just give a sort of a preamble to that, and then I do have a kind of a question to my colleagues. I said after the meeting, I talked about a number of things that were on my mind. I put together 8 questions. I think about 8 questions, and we sent them over to Jim and to Eric, and we copied Matt. I know Matt is copied. I assume you guys all saw them. And there were questions about, and I think you guys have them. Do you guys, in your material, you should have an email that has the questions and then Eric's answers?
I don't,
Okay, I heard a yes and a no.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
No, I
believe.
just sent it to the commissioners, actually.
Yeah, no, I didn't see it either.
I did not see that, Sharon.
Oh,
All right, well, Alice will try and get that over to you. I see, like I said, it's to Alice. Jim, Jim is copied. It went to Alice. I said, I don't know, maybe it just didn't get distributed here, but we'll get this out to the commissioners. That's one reason I wanted to ask the question. So I won't go through all 8, but while I have you, the one that sort of piqued my interest was, like I said, where this building is and the walkway right next to Wetlands 6. There's that sort of portion of Wetlands 6 that comes north, and it's incredibly close to the school. The walkway there sort of goes over it. And my question was, about the long-term impact of this development to Wetlands 6. Like I said, because best I can tell, the building edge is right on the edge of that Wetlands 6. And Eric, you were suggesting that maybe one of the things they could do would be to provide some calculations. I was interested in the hydrology of Wetlands 6 and how that building and whatever grade changes there might be there, could impact the hydrology of that. And I think, Eric, you mentioned, they said they could provide some calculations, some pre and post development flow for that area.
Yeah, I think that would help us understand what the effects to the wetland hydrology, which I think was central to your question. What were the impacts to wetland hydrology? what are the increases in total volume or peak flow to that wetland, and whether they think that some of the sort of groundwater surface water interactions will change based on the way the discharges are going to be reconfigured and the building is going to be sited. I don't know if Matt had a chance to, or if Darren had a chance to address that.
So did you guys see that, Matt and Darren? Did you see the email? I know Matt is copied. I don't know, Darren, you don't seem to be copied on this. So I don't know if it made its way over to you.
I believe it was forwarded to me as well. I think Tecton did forward it to me, and I believe Matt did see that. As far as the hydrology to wetland 6, that wetland is part of the stream corridor that's fed by the upstream, the 2 water courses that are piped through the site, both currently and post-construction. So we have provided detention based on discussions with the Public Works Director and looking at the MS4 permit. He did have a concern about downstream town facilities and the roadways. The fact that this is in a 500-year floodplain, we did provide peak flow attenuation, so we do not have increases in peak flows in the watershed that feeds W6. As Mr. Trinkus noted in his review, we do have some volume increases related to the site. The site itself is only about 10% of the watershed that's above it. And there weren't any requirements, nor were there any feedback that we got in regard from town staff in regard to any concern about increases in volume of runoff. Also, looking at the soils on site and the fact that this area had been disturbed before, the geotech report showed that in the ball fields there was a lot of fines and shallow groundwater. So really the only way to mitigate volume increases in runoff would be to infiltrate. And unfortunately, with the shallow groundwater and the poor soils, there really isn't an opportunity to do that. And Matt can speak as far as impact on that wetland itself with the proximity of the school, but for the most part, the disturbance area hasn't changed from the prior development. And for the most part, we have tried to maintain existing watersheds and tried to mimic existing conditions while designing the stormwater management system to deal with the proposed development. Matt, I don't know if you want to add anything regarding the quality of wetlands and some of the enhancements we're doing there.
Well, I think for the record, it's Matt Sanford, professional wetland scientist with my Lonic Broom. One of the things that was talked about was whether there's some groundwater impacts or change in hydrology groundwater. I think one of the important things to note on the plans is that because we have high groundwater table here, we're actually filling along this section of the wetland. So actually raising the grade here and maintaining that existing groundwater hydrology that does support that wetland in addition to the surface water that is contributed to that wetland from upland stormwater runoff, as well as the 2 tributaries that come into that area. So I think it's important to note that we don't have an impact on the groundwater hydrology. It's still going to move as it does today from west to east across this site under the building that'll be there. In terms of enhancements, wetland number 6 is one of our primary restoration areas. It's targeted for both invasive species removal as well as putting a plan together. It's a no-mow area because currently, if you've been out there and you've seen the eastern side of this wetland, it is mowed routinely. And so part of the restoration plan is to now establish a no-mow zone area on that eastern side, as well as then allowing the vegetation that's there to regrow, and then replanting with supplemental native plants as part of the restoration plan. In totality, for that area, you're looking at somewhere around 14,300 square feet of restoration opportunity there to enhance the biodiversity of that particular wetland, enhance the educational opportunities of that particular wetland, as Jim had, Cowan had alluded to in one of his comments.
All right, well, thank you for all of that. I'm still not sure. I mean, I appreciate all that, all your comments here. I'm still not sure I know where to look to understand the, like I said, the pre and post the flow changes for, and I'm specifically interested in that part of wetland 6, like I said, that sort of is to the west, if I recall, it's sort of to the west of the stream and sort of comes right up against, like I said, best I can tell, it's like there's like zero distance between where those wetland soils are now and where that building is planned to be located. So I remain very concerned about that. I remain concerned about the flow into that particular part of the wetland. I'm also interested, and maybe you've got it and I just haven't seen it, is how that construction is going to occur in the area of that particular, that northern part, if you will, northwestern part, if you will, of wetland 6.
So if I can just add a little bit to that regarding the location of the building.
Yep.
You know, we have wetland 3 behind the building, and I think as Eric mentioned, you know, he would like to see a little bit more distance between, you know, our emergency access drive there and wetland 3.
Yep.
So to do that, we would be pushing forward and pushing the building more onto that stream channel that you're concerned with. So
well, I'm concerned about all of it. So it's not just 6, but it is all of it.
Yeah, it was
not just one.
And there were a lot of discussions with Matt and others. We moved this building around a number of times. And when the construction manager got brought on board a few months ago, they started looking at the work area between the proposed building and the existing building and had a lot of concerns and actually asked us to push the building back, which would have impacted much of wetland 3. So we told them that we really didn't have the ability to do that. It would create a large wetland impact. So we have narrowed down their work area as narrow as they're willing to accept. And we actually went out and met with the school superintendent and the school staff, principal and assistant principal, and walked the area behind the existing school because that's where their bus pickup and drop off is. And we actually showed them that they're going to literally now have 30 feet to drive the buses in and out behind the existing school and loop behind the school. We're taking away much of the paved area that they used to loop the buses around now. And we looked at turning movements with what pavement and drivable area was left to make sure that they could just loop those buses around without having to back up. So they basically have a 15-foot inbound lane for buses to come in behind the school and drop off. And then as buses circulate around and exit, they're going to have a 15-foot outbound lane. And then the construction fence is going to be right up on the other side of that. So there isn't much ability for us to move this further to the east. And you can see clearly from the plan that moving it further to the west impacts wetland 3. So we've gone through 8 months of analysis on this. There was planning on this that goes back to 2017. So there's been a lot of thought that has gone into this, and we've tried to carefully minimize the impacts to not only all wetlands, but to the ones that, you know, our biologist has basically said are more important or less disturbed. And I think as I noted in the prior presentation, we have about 15 acres of disturbance, and that is similar to the original disturbance for development of the existing school and ball fields. I do have some historic aerials that go back and show the site before development of the school, and a couple that show during construction. If the commission would like to see those, I could put that up on the screen to see some of the past impacts to the site. Or if there's no interest in seeing that, that's fine too. But we did research some of the old aerials to understand how this site was developed in the past.
All right. I just have one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to my, open it up to, like I said, to my colleagues here. The other question I said, you know, we're going to eliminate wetlands 4, and I appreciate that, you know, perhaps it you know, it's not not as Mother Nature would have intended it. It's not in perhaps the greatest shape, or some might say of low value. But do you guys have anything to add in terms of an additional place for some wetlands creation? Have you guys even thought about, you know, there's adjoining town property to this, you know, maybe for a possibility to create some wetlands, you know, that could, you know, make up for the loss of 4 and whatever is going to happen with 6?
So I think when you develop a mitigation plan, you start to look at various opportunities on a particular site. Sometimes the mitigation could take on a preservation perspective. Sometimes it could take on restoration, which might be invasive species removal, wetland replantings. Sometimes it's restoration, and then sometimes it is creation. For this particular site, we have a combination of creation as well as restoration. And I think it's important to note that we are daylighting over 200 linear feet of stream that's currently in a pipe. And I think it's important to note that that is creation of a watercourse or recreation of a watercourse that was once there historically. I think it's also important for the commission to note is that our ratios here for mitigation are extremely high. If you look at the total wetland impact, and that includes both the temporary impacts associated with the head wall reconstruction and the cleaning out of debris, as well as some of the loss of the wetlands. If you add those numbers up, it's about 4,500 square feet of impact. If you take a look at our stream channel restoration, our wetland restoration area number 1, and wetland restoration area number 2, you're at approximately 22,000 square feet of restoration. That's more than 4-to-1 ratio. Typical ratios for DEP and the Corps are somewhere around 3-to-1. So we're actually exceeding the ratios that are typical of projects. And I think it's important to note that the restoration that we're doing is going to have a positive impact on those wetlands that are there today. So for those reasons, we looked at
how does daylighting a stream replace the wetlands functions of 4?
Well, let's talk about the wetland functions in number 4. Wetland functions in number 4, it's a disturbed, probably man-made wetland system when they actually created the athletic field. It holds water on occasion, maybe a couple weeks out of the year. Has some facultative wetland plants growing in it, as well as some facultative and upland plants growing in it. So from a function and value standpoint, its size is very small. It doesn't provide any significant wildlife habitat or benefit, doesn't provide any educational benefit, doesn't provide any nutrient and or toxicant retention potential, doesn't provide any flood flow potential, doesn't provide any shoreline stabilization, doesn't provide any educational potential. So again, when we look at the functions and values of a wetland, not every wetland is created equal. And so it's important to take a look at those functions and values and be able to assess what that impact is to that low quality wetland, as I have pointed out, as well as your third-party technical consultant has pointed out. So it's a very low quality wetland, and actually the functions and values you will get from a water course that we're proposing is actually greater than what you have as that existing wetland. And so the water course itself is actually going to provide wildlife habitat, fishery habitat, and aquatic organism habitat. It's also going to have wetland plants on the bottom. It's actually going to provide some nutrient retention capabilities with the vegetation that's within the stream and along its banks. And so those are the functions, and educational potential with its being right next to the school, bank stabilization. So if you look at the functions and values, again, you can't always look at the apples and apples. You got to look at the different wetland types that you're looking at, as well as those functions and values that are being replaced. And in my professional opinion, the daylighting of that water course provides much greater benefit and function to this overall wetland system on the site than the impact to filling in that small, isolated, low quality wetland.
Okay, let me turn it over to, like I said, I had those two important questions that I had. Let me ask my fellow commissioners, questions that you guys have for anyone?
I was happy to hear at least 2 of the participants mentioning educational value. To me, that's very important and gives us an opportunity to teach the next generation about the importance of what we're talking about here today. I'm wondering if there's anything that can be done to, I don't know if enforce is the right word, but to maybe through signage, through dedicating an area outside near the wetlands for an outdoor classroom, something that can be done to be sure that the school district has the ability to and the desire to use what we're doing as an educational value.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, sure.
Yep.
It's my name's Jeff Wazinski, from principal at Tecton Architects, and I've been involved from the initial concept during the master planning. And just to speak to Michael's point about the educational values, this theme has been integrated early on throughout the design of the project. So there's many different opportunities for outdoor classrooms. We have 2 connecting courtyards. So what the idea and the concept of this project is to really embrace the challenges and opportunities of the site, but use them as an educational tool and resource for the students. So I can assure you, and we can get more detail, that this has been talked about at length with the faculty and staff, and has been fully integrated into the site plan, building, access points, and landscape plan. So thank you.
Well, no, thank you. Dave, Mark?
Yeah, I like the educational aspect. I think it might want to go beyond even wetlands into ecology for the new school, the grounds around it. I don't think it would hurt if students at the other Brookfield schools could also take advantage of it. Those who've already passed through Huckleberry. I think that would be a beneficial aspect. I do want you to know, in general, there are some aspects of this project, and it almost feels like it's putting a square peg in a round hole. That's just, I'm not against a new school or anything, but I just have that general feeling, square peg, round hole.
So normally I would look down the table and look for something.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mark, but I don't get to do that now.
I have some things here that I just don't feel have been adequately addressed, and/or some have been glossed over completely since our last meeting. So I'm looking at your brief report on a preliminary botanical survey of Huckleberry Hill by Christopher Mangels, botanical and ecological consultant, from the 12th of November 2019. Is that familiar to all of you? I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah,
since it's
yes,
your
it
report. Thank you. So just a couple of things I want to highlight that I know need to be addressed in my heart of hearts to protect the wetlands and the diversity we have on this wetland and upland review area. So we talked about the hairy fruited sedge. It was confirmed. However, considerable potential for other species of interest in certain focal groups in interior section of the site was noted. He also goes on that we need to do seasons long or year long survey. That hasn't been done, right? He wants us to stop mowing and do a survey so we can see what's really there, if there's any more of these rare species and endangered species on the site. We've also gone over the two-spotted skipper butterfly, which is an endangered species in Connecticut. There's only 2 confirmed cases of the diversity for it. The I can't pronounce that stuff. The larval hot splank. You guys, I'm sure, know more about it than me. But there's only 2 sites, both in Litchfield. This is the first one in Fairfield County since 2007. The species are declining significant from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania. We have to take that stuff into consideration. The species relationship and invertebrate fauna of the site in general bears further investigation. This is your report. The fact that 153 taxa were compiled in a brief seasonally restricted survey period signifies HHES actually supports a substantially higher level of overall floristic richness. Goes on about the hairy fruited sedge again. Many times he's referencing additional site survey work, and I don't think that's been done. Maybe somebody will correct me as soon as I'm finished here. He also establishing a buffer zone of 5 or more meters between the hairy fruited sedge and anything we're gonna do. He's even assuming it's gonna stay a field at that point and relaxing the mowing regime of the field. So not even having the buildings within 20 feet or more of that, or any walkway or anything. Any proposed site development or land use changes should take into consideration the site's overall biodiversity and strive to maintain the character and ecological integrity of existing natural vegetation and plant communities, both within the core and the more peripheral portions of the site. There's just a lot of things that I don't feel are yet. I know we're early on in this process, but I don't want that stuff to get glossed over. That's it.
All right, thanks, Mark. Oh, let me get back.
Do you want us to respond to that, or do you
If you'd
want
like
us?
to,
If
certainly.
you'd like to, yeah.
Okay.
Certainly have a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll speak to the process because I'm not the expert. My understanding of the process, which we documented after this question was raised, is Malone McBroom went out there for a preliminary survey back in the fall. They saw some things that they weren't, that they wanted further investigation and special expertise. So they called this fellow in, Chris Mangles, in for the report. Once he gave the report to Malone McBroom, we then filed basically an application or notification with DEEP. Darren, is this basically correct? To get a reading, the NDDB application. So then we received that information back from DEP and put it into the document, into the appendix of the report. So I believe from my interpretation of what the process was in the early site due diligence, Malone McBroom acknowledged that there were some items, didn't have the expertise, called them in, got the report, filed it with the state, and the state gave us a reading, and we're following the guidelines accordingly. That's my impression and interpretation of what has happened. Most of that, if not all of that data, is included in the appendix. I spent some time understanding the process, but I believe both Matt and Darren have, the expertise because they filed the actual applications. So.
Yeah, Jeff, I think you summarized it correctly, perfectly. I think it's important to note is that also Jim Cowan has been out there. He's a very seasoned botanist. I don't know if he's got anything to add in terms of what he actually observed on the site in addition. So Chris's report talked about seasons and needing additional botanical surveys, et cetera. But I think your third-party technical consultant has been on the site, has verified the species that we did find out there. I don't believe he found any other listed species currently growing in the site. So from perspective of listed species and both flora and fauna for that matter, it's important to note that the responsibility of those particular items, whether it's in a wetland or in an upland, really falls on Connecticut DEP. And we have followed the appropriate protocols for the site investigations. I think it's also important to note is that the project area is primarily within the disturbed areas on this site, whether it's the athletic field, whether it's part of the parking lot that's there today. And I think that's really important to note in terms of the botanical surveys that have been done out there, and the summary of those surveys, in that we have kept our disturbance area to these impacted areas, which are less likely to have listed species. And so the hairy fruited sedge, which was documented in the southeast corner, actually prefers some disturbance, and we've documented that. And so we believe we have appropriately documented the species within the project area. And again, if Jim has got any other information that he could provide here in terms of what his opinion is out there in terms of what he saw during a different time of season, when our work was done in 2019, Jim was out there in 2020. I'd be happy to hear his results of his work out there.
Before Jim, before you speak, if I may. So we all clearly understand that Mr. Cowan has only been involved in this for a brief time with us. He's not had time to do seasons long. I'm not even sure if we asked him at this point to do seasons long surveys of the systems. But to your words, Mr. Wazinski, you wanted special expertise, so you hired Mr. Mangles. Special expertise. So you hired a guy, he made some recommendations, and then you followed, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but you then followed it up with the state DEP, and now you're going with the state DEP recommendations. I know that they have recommendations. The state DEP is also the one that cuts down all the trees on 84 through all the wetlands. The state DEP is also the one that doesn't have to come to us and decimates upland review areas around wetlands. So as a bare minimum, I would like to think that you're maybe going a little above and beyond, not trying to follow bare minimum of a organization that doesn't necessarily always have the best interests of Brookfield, Connecticut in their interest in our wetlands and upland review area.
I appreciate that. Basically, we were following, those are the rules. We followed the rules, and it's part of the application. That was my.
Well, there's bare minimum rules, and then there's what your expert said and what our experts, and we're gonna, and this board makes our own decision. But you know, you hired an expert, and you're going against some of what he says to do the bare minimum, what I'm going to call the bare minimum. Probably a wrong quote, because I'm not suggesting you guys are skating by, but I'm just, there's a lot of things in there that I think bear further investigation by this committee. Sorry, Mr. Cowan, you can respond now.
I did go out in the spring, which is a different season than Chris Mangles. And I would agree with Matt Sanford that most of the development is within existing turf grass, pavement, and disturbed areas. We wouldn't look for high biodiversity there. It's basically turf grasses and so forth. I did note 3 species that Mr. Mangles did not observe due to the season of the year. One was the invasive Canada thistle, which was very obvious in the spring. And so that one needs to be controlled. And the other 2 I mentioned in my letter and recommendations, and one was the golden ragwort, which does occur in wetland 4, and there was quite a bit of it there, even though it's a small limited wetland. That particular species is a good pollinator, and so I recommended that plant species be incorporated in the wetland planting plan, just to maintain that biodiversity that's already there. And the revised application does do that. The other species that I saw that is somewhat uncommon and used to be state listed is the small flowered agrimony. And I did observe that in wetland 6 in the vicinity of the area, I think, of the new road. And I did, when I was out there, I hung a blue flag just to note its location. It turns out that species is used to be state listed, but we found more population, so it is secure in the state of Connecticut, but it does add to the biodiversity of the site. And I suggested that the plants either be moved and or the seed collected and sown into the creation or restoration area. Those were the 3 additional species that I saw. I did review Mr. Mangle's species list. I was basically focusing on the Carex trichocarpa and the limits of disturbance. I did not go in depth into the wooded wetland and thicket around the perimeter. There may be more species there. Seem to be relatively common, and as is fairly typical of a disturbed site, there are plenty of invasives around the edges. And so I do think the enhancement plan and controlling invasives is a good step. The one other thing that I would just say about the Carex trichocarpa, and Matt Sanford is correct in that it does like open areas and does benefit from that mowed edge. That in the enhancement plan, there could be additional removal of invasives adjacent to the Carex trichocarpa. If done carefully, that could allow it to expand closer to the actual stream channel. So I would just add a little bit more area to the enhancement, and by removing woody invasives, that would open that up and allow the Carex trichocarpa more room to move.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. If I may, one more thing.
Absolutely.
Chairman Fox. One thing we ask all of our applicants, so I'm going to ask it again, is I know you have a lot of work on your responses to our experts, but if we could get the responses more than 2 working days before our meeting, it might give our experts more time to thoroughly review them so that they can get back to you before a meeting with their comments. I know it's tough, but we ask that every public hearing, we end up asking that. So I'm just asking that again.
Mark, why don't we qualify that 2 business days before, because we have meetings on Monday, so 2 days before would be Saturday and Sunday. So 2 business days, that would be Thursday, Friday.
2 business days. If I didn't say business, I stand corrected.
Oh, no big deal.
All right, I have one more question, and then I think we're going to move to an opportunity for the public to ask questions about the application. But this is for, I said, for Matt or whatever, or any of the guys. In the new documentation, where do we look to find the long-term maintenance plan for the wetlands, the creation areas, the areas around the wetlands? Any additional information about, the turtle population? What document is that located in?
So I'll chime in on the long-term maintenance of the wetland restoration and invasive species management. That has not been put together yet. That's something that we will do per your comment as well as Jim's.
Okay.
Jim Cowan's.
Right, so we don't have it yet, so that's why I didn't find it.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? I said.
Well, I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
This whole project would be a heck of a lot easier if the new school were built on the same footprint as the current school. We're going to destroy the current school anyway. We're going to put up a new building. There wouldn't be any cost differential. And a lot of the issues we've been talking about tonight would go away. And that's all. I just think it should be on the same footprint, basically, or the basic footprint.
It could be conceivably an alternative.
Well, it would make the whole thing a heck of a lot easier. I know they want to keep I know the thing is you want to keep the school open, and perhaps it could be done in such a way that students could be at the other Brookfield schools while construction was going on. But, trying to keep the school operating, the current school, and building a new school, and there are all kinds of issues on the property, including wetlands, and I just think there might be a more effective way of going forward.
I would just like to warn, we are concerned about wetlands issues here and upland review area issues where they build a school outside of moving it more towards Huckleberry Road is out of our purview, or how they would do that is we can't I would
Mhm.
slippery slope to even suggest how they would do that. But I agree with the point that if it was moved closer to Candlewood Lake Road, a lot of these problems could be avoided. I understand that also the town has other issues with that, but as a wetlands commissioner, our purview is the wetlands and the upland review area.
Still, there are always part of this process is to identify, other alternatives or other options, so.
No, and I understand uplands reviews and wetlands. I understand completely. And, if the school were just built in the same place, we wouldn't be talking about a lot of this.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, for context, may I make a remark?
Sure. Get just your name and address.
Yes, this is Jack Butkus with Arcadis. We're the program managers for the project, working for the building committee. Just to respond to that last remark about building on the existing school's footprint, while I agree that that would be a much simpler, from an approval process, a much simpler perspective. One of the reasons for constructing this school and constructing it of the size that it's being proposed is that there are not spaces within other district buildings to absorb these students in order to allow a building to come down first and then to build a new building on its footprint. And when you look at the alternative of swing space of housing the students at other locations, I can say from experience I've had with other projects around the state that for a student body about the size of the existing Huckleberry population, you would probably be in the neighborhood of $750,000 to $1 million a year, and this project is going to span 2 school years or touch 2 school years. So that would be a $1.5 to $2 million hit, either to reduce the investment beyond against what the expectations of the project are, or would have inflated the price of the project even further, which obviously would have been distasteful at the point of a public vote for referendum. So in order to balance the need for the students and the use of resources, this is kind of like the least worst solution, even though it does provide its challenges as is being discussed tonight.
Right. All right, thank you for that. Okay, any other questions? I said from the commissioners? All right. I don't hear any. Again, well, so what I'd like to do is if there are members of the public that are here this evening, I see we have 21 total people. If there are individuals that would like to ask questions or related to wetlands or the items that you've heard today, again, along the theme of wetlands, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do so. I'm going to be looking for either to raise a hand. There's not that many, so let's just see how it works. Is there someone here on the phone from the public that has a question about the application and its impact on the wetlands, or something you've heard this evening or from earlier from our previous meeting? Anybody got any questions? Let's see, I don't see any hands. I don't hear anything.
Everyone seems to be muted. Do they have the ability to unmute themselves?
They can raise their hand. They may not be able to unmute themselves, but they could raise their hand. They can enter the chat room. If there was a list of people, they can put a group chat out. We would take them in order, anything like that.
Mark,
you can unmute with *6 if you're on a phone.
All right. Thank you, Dave. I said, all right, so we're looking for a hand. There's an icon down there at the bottom if you want to raise your hand. If you're not familiar with Zoom, there is a chat. I'm not sure where the chat is. I'm looking to see it.
It should be
right
on the bottom.
Yeah, I see yes, no, go slower, go faster. I see coffee and clapping, so. Oh, there we go.
That was from me, just so everybody, if somebody wants to respond.
Okay.
It's just questions only right now.
All right, so questions. All right, well, again, so let me ask that. I'm not seeing anyone. I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. That we know of. We haven't super muted you. Anyone? So let me ask, is there anyone that wants to speak in favor of this application? it's on the phone.
Use any of the same methods we just described.
Great, we're looking. All right, I don't see any activity. I don't see anything in the chat.
Agreed.
I don't see any hands. Is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition to this application? I got 4 earlier and opposition now.
Again, I see nothing. No indication.
All right. Okay, well, again, I think then, I think we're coming to the end of at least this portion of the meeting. I think there's still a number of things that are, I know I am interested in. You know, we've got some new plans that I know we want to take a look at. Jim, Steve, and Eric probably want to finish their reviews. For Matt, I'm not going to probably get everybody, Matt, Darren, and Jeff, and Ed, a couple of things I know that Mark mentioned, that I mentioned, that I'll be very interested in seeing. So this hearing, the process for the hearing doesn't time out until until July 27th. Does that sound right to you guys?
Darren, Jeffrey, does that sound right?
Darren, yeah.
I guess so, and it can be extended, you know, beyond the 27th.
It can, but let me just ask, just to be sure we're all on the same page here. Darren, did we lose you? I know you're muted there.
No, I'm still here.
You're still there? Okay, yeah. All right, that sound right to you, the 27th of July?
Yes.
Okay,
And that is our next meeting.
and that is our next meeting.
So any responses formally will be into you via PDF to Alice by the 22nd. Is that correct?
That will, yeah, that will be great. I'm sure, like you know, there's, you know, we want to get all the information. We want to get all the questions answered. I don't think anyone is, and I don't think anyone here wants to go rush on this process, you know, but we don't need it to drag on and on and on and on and on. You know, and a part of that, as Mark eloquently put, if you guys can get us the information, it gives us another, you know, 48 hours to take a look at it, you know, with, you know, so that everyone can come prepared on the 27th.
I don't know that I'm ever very eloquent, Sharon, but thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, well then I'll take a motion to, like I said, to continue this public hearing until our next meeting.
I will make a motion to continue the public hearing for 100 Candlewood Lake Road, item number W-20-24, new school project, to our next regularly scheduled meeting on July 27th, 2020.
Second.
All right, thanks, Dave. We got a second. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0. All right, thank you, everyone. So again, for the public,
Thanks, guys.
the public hearing portion for the school is continued till the end, and we're going to go back to our agenda.
Thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you.
All right, the next one I have here, we still have a tabled item. That's the 401 Federal Road.
Yeah, and they requested we table that until our next meeting, right, Alice?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion. We table item 7A, 401 Federal Road, number W-20-20 to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Thank you,
Okay,
Michael.
all those. All right. I'm not sure it's necessary, but that's okay. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right. I probably, no, I'll do it in informal. All right, so let's go to correspondence, review of the previous minutes from June 22nd, 2020. I took a look at them. I didn't see anything that jumped out at me that we want.
No, I didn't either.
I would agree.
All right.
So I'll make a motion to, we approve the minutes of the June 22nd, 2020 Wetlands Commission meeting as presented.
A second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Dave. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimous. Okay, informal discussion. I have the first one. I owed everyone, because I mentioned to the applicant from Wisconsin Road that I would draft up a letter from the commission to the fire commissioner and ask for some consideration for that driveway 14 to 18 foot. I did not finish that project as of today, but I will finish it for the next meeting and get that, we'll get that off. I'll have you guys all take a look at it. Riparian buffers, that is also on my list of things to do. Michael, and I think that's kind of where we left the PFAs, right? We are going to continue to mull this over.
Yeah, maybe when we find ourselves in a meeting that's a little shorter, we can enjoy that discussion.
So, Sharon, the
Yes.
riparian buffer discussion that we've been putting off now, not putting off, but we haven't had time to discuss and fully vet for 6 or 8 months. I believe that would be very vital to a project that we just proclaimed just tonight declared a public hearing on. That would be a riparian buffer area. So
Right. And we do, yeah, and we do get to consider, we do get to consider, information from our experts. We do get consider material that is just out in the public. Again, what I was thinking of, I said maybe we could, be a little bit more, provide a little bit more guidance, to the applicants about streams, stream buffers, Lake Winona, as you look, I said. So I think we still get the opportunity to consider all the, like I said, all the available information when we, look into a particular application. So I don't think we're precluded from something, but I do want to get to it. You're right. So thank you for that. Anything else? Informal discussion. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
I'll
David made the motion. Michael
I'll
seconded.
second it. Sure.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The commission meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you
Good
very much.
evening, all. Good night.
See you in 2